Hi, welcome to That's My Purse Pop, podcast all about King of the Hill. I'm Jason.
And I'm Jimmy.
So the magic question we ask every week: how was your past week? Anything interesting happen? Unusual, different, all that good stuff.
Interesting, unusual, or different? Hmm. This is a tough one. What did I do this week? Um, I think we've already talked. Well, I mean, we talked about this personally, but I am getting ready to head out to California soon for a Power Ranger convention. I'm a big Power Ranger fan, so I'm actually working on making my own custom Power Ranger helmet where I fused two different helmets together. So I've made the 3D file myself, and I got my friend to print it for me. Even though I just recently bought a 3D printer,
Hmm.
but this was beforehand, so he printed it out for me, and now I'm just like slowly working on it. It's a lot of sanding, so hopefully I'll be able to finish it before the convention time, so I can get it signed by
Nice.
one of the actors there. So that's kind of been my little project, but weather has not been on my side here in Texas. It's either been too hot or raining, which is weird because we've been. I guess it's not too weird because we've been in a drought for like a month or so. So I guess rain isn't too bad of a thing. But when you're all set to work outside and then it starts raining, it's just like spray paint and rain and spray paint and extreme heat are
No,
not
I
good
feel like that's something
things.
Hank Hill would say too, for what it's worth.
I need Hank Hill. Like, Hank could probably knock this
Absolutely.
project out in a couple of days. And it's taking me like I'm like I have 20 days left. If I can finish this, then that would be a miracle. Hank was like, I built 8 of these things. Like, here's 10 different versions of it if you want. So I need it. I need a
Yeah,
Hank Hill.
though I feel like he would probably not know how to use the 3D printer. Every other aspect, I guarantee. Well, I don't know. So I'm on the fence because I feel like on one hand, he would see the benefit of having a 3D printer, but on the other hand, I feel like he'd be like, "Oh, that's like too high tech for me. I don't know what this is."
So I mean, the main reason I got the 3D printer was to print props and things for conventions and stuff. But a selling point was when I was researching them, you can build certain car parts out of a 3D
Mm-hmm.
printer, like connectors for your car, like the hose, like connectors and things like that. So if you had an older model, but someone's made a 3D or an older car,
Yeah.
they're called models, right?
Yep.
Older car models, and then someone's made a 3D model for the part, you could print it out. So I feel like I don't know. Hank would learn to. What an interesting. This like we were talking about Hank using computers, and then it's this episode. But
Yeah. Exactly.
but how was your week?
That was pretty good. I went
Before we
to the
come
beach with some friends, which was fun. Brought the dog. She went crazy as always. Uh, that's just her personality. I don't know, she's just an aggressive barker. I don't know exactly why, but she is. She is a shelter dog, so that might be like a contributing factor. But yeah, I have no idea why she's the way she is.
in, I don't know. That's interesting. I feel like my dog is also a barker, but I don't understand. He socializes a little bit, but he's not big on like meeting a lot of people. So anything freaks him out. Everything is the end of the world for him.
Yep, same with her. Unless like once she starts to trust you, then it becomes different. But yeah, she's just a very, very, very loud dog. I'm going to Seattle. Well, pretty much the whole Pacific Northwest. Well, not the whole Pacific Northwest, but I mean, there's only really two major cities anybody visits out there, Portland and Seattle, and I'm hitting both of them up to visit friends and just unplug and everything. I wonder if I'm taking too long of a vacation, but there's no such thing. Uh, I don't know. Like, do you ever get that feeling when you're on a vacation where you just want to be home already?
There are some points where it's just like I've done everything I need to do, and mostly it's like I miss my bed.
Yeah.
I miss showering in my shower. So for some reason, showering in your own shower is very different than showering in a hotel shower, or if you're staying with friends or renting a house. The showers never feel the same as they do in your own place.
Yep. That's always been kind of my thing. It's just no matter how nice the bed is, even if it's like you're in like a huge, you know, $2,000 a night suite or something, there's just something nice about just being in your own bed that you just can't replicate. And yeah, I know that feeling well. And there's just something about your own shower. I always have like this thought that I have about like everybody is thinks they're smart, but no matter how smart you are, everyone looks dumb when they're trying to drive someone else's car or they're trying to use a shower they're unfamiliar with.
Oh my gosh. So I have a story. I feel like I always have a story, but I have a story. Recently visited my friends in Indiana, and like I go to take a shower. So I turn on the shower. Like the easy part is turning on the water. I always feel like
Mm-hmm.
everyone we can all figure out the water part. Why can't we as a society agree on this is how you turn the shower part on? So the water's coming out of the faucet, the like bottom faucet area. And I'm like, how do I turn the shower on? I'm pulling knobs, I'm like turning things, and then I'm just like, I cannot figure. I was in there for about 20 minutes trying to figure this out. I'm turning the water on and off because I don't want to waste the water while I'm doing this, and I just give up. And I text my friend. I'm like, how do I turn on the shower? And he's like, oh, let me show you. So I had to get dressed because I was naked. But I go, he comes in, and where the faucet is, you pull down. Like
I've
where the
seen
water's
those.
coming out, you pull down on the, and then you twist it and it locks. What the like? I don't know. For me, at my shower, it's a little thing on top that you pull, like on top of the faucet area, you pull, and that blocks the wall.
Yeah, that's what I'm used
The
to
faucet
too.
one is like a spy method, right? It's like secretive.
Yeah, it's like you just don't want anybody to actually be able to use their shower or whatever when you do that.
I don't know. Do you know a different method, like other than the two that I just listed? Is there another?
There's a lot of weird ones. That one you mentioned, I have actually seen those showers before, but there's also like, oh gosh, man, I know like I've seen some showers where like there, oh, I saw like some that had like separate knobs for hot and cold, but then like not just hot and cold, but to actually turn on the shower. Like you'd have to turn on one knob and then turn on the hot and cold knob. Like there's just so many weird ways people set things up, and I have no idea why. I mean, whatever. It's I think I do agree with you. There needs to be like we just all need to come together and agree on a standard for showers and be like, "Yep, this is how all showers are going to work. It's going to have this button that you press and it turns on the water, and there you go."
I will say before we jump out of the shower conversation, at my last place, the hot and cold were flipped. So if you turn the nozzle to hot, it was cold water, and you turned it to cold, it was hot water. So I would always have to tell people coming over like it's flipped. So just remember. And of course they forget. It's I never tell them when they're about to take a shower. It's always like when they get here, I'm like, hey, just to let you know, it's flipped. And then they go take a shower, and it's a disaster, of course.
I've had similar what was it? I'm trying to think. Oh, like one time and it's not really a shower thing, but it did make laundry interesting. For whatever reason, the not the hoses, but the actual faucets were mislabeled. So the red faucet was actually cold, and the blue faucet was actually hot. But I just connected them as I assumed that they should be connected. You know, and like for the longest time, I couldn't figure out why. Like my clothes were coming out like they seemed like they were washed cold when I wanted them to wash hot, or vice versa. I was washing them hot or washing them cold, and then they came out like a little bit warmer, and I'm like, "What's going on?" And in my genius mind, it took me a little while to figure out, like, oh, yep, that's what happened there. So at first, I was like, "Oh, did I just put the hoses on wrong?" But then I traced the hoses back, and they're fine. And then all of a sudden, it's like, "Oh no, it's just whoever installed the spigots or whatever messed it up."
I feel like I don't think we're ever gonna. This is like those things, we can never agree on a thing, and we'll never agree on how bathrooms should be laid out and how showers should be turned on. I think that's. I wonder if it's different in other countries. If you're listening and you're in a different country, how do you turn your shower on?
It depends.
Now
It
I'm
could
curious.
vary.
Was it the same in Japan?
It depends on the.
What's it like in Japan?
It depends. So if you go to a hotel, a lot of them are westernized to cater to like Western tourists and stuff. So it's pretty similar to what we're used to. Like you pull a knob or whatever. But like if you go to like maybe a person's house or something, a lot of times it's just like an overhead, like the overhead shower, the handheld sprinkler and whatnot, and it's like just a largest or sometimes small size room, and you just kind of wet yourself with the thing, and and it's usually connected to the sink. So there's usually like a knob you can turn that turns the water from going into the sink to going through the little shower head, and then you kind of just bathe yourself that way. I guess it's like space efficient.
Now that I'm thinking about it, do we need the faucet part? I mean, I get. I feel like I don't know. I'm just like I'm not a bath guy. I don't take baths. I take showers only. So
I mean, the bath bomb
I'm like we don't
business.
faucet. Oh, oh wait, did you say you're in the bath bomb
No, I
business?
said the bath bomb business. Like, there's a whole bath bomb business, so that kind of tells me that there has to be a market of people taking baths.
I thought you were like I am in the bath. I imagine you like at home making your own little bath bombs. Like
Yeah, but I mean, I'm right there with you. Like in general, I can't even tell you the last time I took a bath. Definitely a shower person.
yeah, baths don't. Like I'm dirty, and then I'm in a bath, and then the water around me is the dirty water,
Pretty
like
much.
all the filth that I. So now I want that to go away.
Exactly. That's
I
always
feel
been
like
mine.
but baths more efficient? Like
No,
I don't know.
no. I mean, depending. I mean, if you just hang out in the shower, then obviously it's not super efficient. But generally speaking, like you can use less water showering than bathing. Who would really enjoy installing showers and baths and stuff is Hank Hill. I don't know. There's probably been a few episodes where he redid the bathroom or something, but we can jump right into the King of the Hill episode. How do you think? What do you think about that?
Nah, I'm okay. We don't have to do it today. Oh, I changed my mind. Let's do it.
Awesome. So this episode is going to be episode 22 of the podcast. The episode's called Grand Theft Arlen. It's actually season 11, episode 8 of the series. And this is one of the few, I wouldn't say one of the few, but because there are more than just a few, but this is like one of the great ones, I think, in the later seasons that I could watch over and over and over again. Because I've mentioned that the later seasons feels like a different continuity to me, and it's like hard for me to like them in comparison to the earlier seasons. But this is one of the episodes that I absolutely love. And it actually disappoints me that somebody didn't actually make this mod in real life because I would be all over it if they did. All right. So we start at the Hill House. It's breakfast time, and Peggy came up with a great new breakfast game to play. Basically, she accidentally dropped one of the pancakes on the floor, so she just put it back on the plate, and now they're going to play a game called Pancake Roulette. So somebody is going to have the misfortune of having eaten the floor pancake. I don't know if there's any I don't know, like dust mites or something on it, like any giveaways, but who's I guess that's an interesting game for Peggy. I don't know that I would play it, but all right. Uh, Bobby comes out and he is playing a video game at the table. He's playing, I guess, like the what amounts to a Game Boy. It doesn't look like a Game Boy I ever had, but it looked like a Game Boy. And he's like, I've got to jump over this monkey. Can somebody just pour the cereal into my mouth? And Hank's not happy because like you can't play video games at the table. And he's like, this isn't just, video games. It's my homework. It's for PE, the active electronic lifestyle. And Hank is just like, PE? What? PE is supposed to be for sports. Why are you playing video games in PE? And he's like, there's video games for lots of sports. And then Hank, does his famous line. He's just like, truck, which just means, he's going to fix whatever is problematic that he sees. So when they're driving in the truck, Bobby brings up the fact that it's the presidential fitness test, and that's one of the big reasons he doesn't want to get back into PE. But Hank wants him to get back into PE because he thinks it's important, and Hank a big sports person and all that stuff. But he's like, oh, but they're going to measure our fat with calipers and everything, and Hank's like, don't worry, I'll get you prepared. We'll set some charts and we'll set some goals and chart the progress. And Hank's happy about it. Bobby not so much. They get to the gym and Coach Kleehammer's there and he's like, Hill, what are you doing here? I thought all the doughy kids were going to take the easy way out. No offense. But then Hank's just like, oh, well, you called like you see him. But Bobby is here to work. So do everything that Coach Kleehammer yells at you. Bobby joins PE. And then Hank looks over and he sees a door with the sign virtual PE on there. And he sees Principal Moss walking in. So Hank's like, all right, well, let me get to the bottom of this. He goes in and he sees like a bunch of people playing video games. And he's just like, hey, Carl, I know that the divorce was tough on you, but that's no excuse to take it out on PE. And Moss is like, hey, the school board wants more computers and this counts. And, but, he's like, you mean you're wasting our tax dollars on games like Lowrider Rampage? And he's like, oh, we're not spending anything on it. It's free. The course is taught by the community college. They make the games and our kids test them. And he's like, you need to really let these kids outside, though, especially those ones. And he's like, oh, that's not a student. That's one of our student teachers. And they think Hank's the janitor, and they're really just getting on his nerves. So it's like, oh, man, can you fix this? It's like, I'm not the janitor. It's like, hey, where'd you get that hat? Is it from Urban Outfitters? He's like, no, it's from work. Oh, do you work at Urban Outfitters? No, I work at Strickland Propane. You mean the hat's not ironic? How is a hat ironic? So they go outside, and the coach is doing PE and having all the kids do push-ups, or I'm rather having them all do sit-ups. Coach is having them all do sit-ups. Bobby can't even get one done, and so he's like, this is the presidential fitness test, and you get a letter from the president if you pass, and if you fail, you get a blank magnet. So yeah. I don't know about you, so I do vaguely remember the presidential fitness test, and I actually remember just getting a participation in it. I was like so out of shape when I was a kid.
I don't remember the presidential fitness test, and I did everything in PE. Not like I'm far from fit, but not that I would like sit it out. I just don't remember it. Maybe we did do it. If we did, I flopped my way through it like I did when I did Tough Mudder. I do think about, because we did get weighed in at elementary school and gym. I'm sure we got weighed in a lot. I just don't remember it. But I do remember in elementary school, the gym teacher would always be like, we're going to eat the fattest kid. She would always say that. But then after weighing everyone in, she'd be like, oh, none of you are fat enough. I don't know if that is like a relief, but she would always say that. I'd be like, "Oh Jesus!"
I'm not sure how I feel about that. Like, on one hand, I guess it's funny, but on the other hand, I'm like,
No,
like,
thank you.
well, that there were some kids who were just making fun of them the whole time, being like, "Oh, it's going to be you. You're going to be the fat kid." Ha ha ha.
I, I'm just crying. I remember her saying that and just always being like, "I hope that other person's fatter than me." But I don't know. Yeah, gym was not my favorite class, so I don't have much to talk about gym. I love parachute when I was in elementary school, but Bobby's in middle school, right? This is a middle
Yep.
school thing.
When I got
Yeah, I don't
to
remember.
high school, I was better, but I still wasn't great. Like, I was definitely more faster and coordinated than when I was in elementary school, but I was far from being like top athlete. Like, I probably wouldn't even make it as mediocre athlete when I was in high school.
So in high school, we didn't have virtual PE, but for one of my PE credits, they started this new class that would count as a PE credit,
Uh huh.
but it wasn't really a sports thing. It was outdoor survival class, and you would learn how to make a fire and a shelter, and that like how to like basically it was like what is that thing with Bear Grylls?
Yeah, like a
It was kind of like that.
Survivor Man or something like that.
Yeah, we would learn how to make fires and shelters and things like that. We did that for half the class, and then the other half the class, I played Yu-Gi-Oh. So it's a little mixed bag
Yeah.
with PE.
In high school gym, our coach was pretty chill, especially because I had gym in like the last class of the day. So he was just like, "Look, you just have to dress out. I don't care what you do. Just have to get into gym clothes. That's all." And so, like, you could just, yeah, do that. You could play card games. You can do whatever. As long as you were in the gym and you were dressed out, you were fine.
I'm gonna tell you. I don't know if I've told you this story. This is my last gym story, but this is like burned into my brain. So when I was a freshman in high school, we were playing some kind of basketball sport, or we were out. Everyone was getting sweaty though, and I had braces in high school, and it was like jerseys versus non-jerseys. And at the end of class, my the coach was like, "Here's the bag." He handed me the bag. He was like, "Collect all the jerseys." So I was standing there with the bag open, and people were throwing the jerseys in the bag. And I was talking to someone, and someone threw the jersey and like took it in the bag, but it hit me on my face, and the jersey got caught in my braces. It was horrible. Like I guess that's why I hate gym because I could taste the sweat from the jersey because it was on my gums, and like trying to get off my braces. Oh, braces are the worst. Like children are lucky today. Do they still do braces or is it all Invisalign?
Oh, they still do braces. I think the technology's gotten better to where it's not as, you know, you don't have to wear them as long or anything. But yeah, braces, I've absolutely still seen them.
That was a nightmare, and everyone just laughed at me. Not that anyone could help me get the jersey out of my braces, but it was gym was not where I shined. Gym is not where I shine. I feel like I'm relating to Bobby now.
Yeah, in a lot of ways, I can relate to Bobby too. But yeah. Anyway, moving back, we're at Strickland Propane. We only hear one side of this conversation. A customer calls in and asks Hank a question, and Hank's response is, "Well, some people use ketchup or mustard." Then there's a pause, and he says, "No, I wouldn't recommend both. I want to imagine like there's nothing wrong with ketchup and mustard on a burger. I'm imagining it's a steak or something. But then again, who puts mustard on a steak? I don't know." He sees the student teachers from earlier in the day just like wandering around, and so he's naturally a little miffed because he's just like, "Whoa, what are they doing here? Clearly they're not here to buy anything." And then he comes out and he's like, "What are you guys doing here? Don't press that and stuff." And he like, "I don't know. You just got us curious about propane." And then can I? What do I have to do to get a hat? And he's like, "What would you do if a customer came in and asked a question like, duh, I don't know. I just work the hat." And they are just so. They, Hank's just not happy and asks them to leave, and they eventually leave. They're in the yard. They're training Bobby or getting ready to train Bobby, and Hank is just like, I'm so glad I got you out of that class. This pain that you're going to have, it's going to lead to a lot of gain. As they're setting up everything, we then see Min and Khan kind of looking over the fence, and they're like, "Oh, what are they doing? Are they going to hit? Are they going to string up Gribble like a pinata?" And it's like, if Gribble had candy in him, then I'm sure Bobby would have already eaten it all. And they laugh. And now they ask Bobby to do a standing long jump, and he jumps like maybe 3 inches, and Hank's like, "Oh, really?" All of a sudden, Joseph comes up. I guess he's actually in the virtual PE course, and he says, "Oh, I need help with my homework, and it's actually about propane." And they go and they see a 3D model of Strickland propane, and are like, "What? That looks just like Strickland propane." And then Bobtail pulls up. The game's called Propane, but it's Propain. And then and the protagonist steps out of the truck, and it's actually Hank Hill, or a digital version of Hank Hill. So after the break, we see the guys in the alley as always, and Bill's like, "Wow, that's cool. There's a game where you get to be Hank." And Hank's all upset. He's like, "No, you can't just take someone's face without asking." And then Dale's like, "Thank you." We go back to Strickland Propane, and Roger is playing, who's a minor character. We've seen him maybe 2 or 3 episodes. I don't think we've seen him yet in the podcast, but he's in the whole season. I think he's in about 2, 3, maybe 4 different episodes. Uh, they're playing the game, and Roger's trying to show Hank how to play it, and Hank's like, "Oh, look, they've got features of the Char King on the Flame Master." And Buck asks Hank to play the game to get as much information as he can because he wants to, I guess, ultimately sue the makers for copyright infringement and trademark infringement and all that fun stuff. So Roger's playing, and this game is very Grand Theft Auto esque, just like with the name Grand Theft Arlen. Uh, you know, Roger says he needs a vehicle, and he kills a motorist, and Hank's like, "You killed that motorist." And then he's like, "Okay, I'm going to engage these guys." And, he starts playing. He's like, "Okay, I got to go make some deliveries." Now, remember, the cops are bad. And then Hank starts playing, and then his character stabs a parking attendant. He's like, "I just killed a parking attendant. Where's the button to turn myself in?" Hank comes back home. Everybody's waiting for him. Dale's trying to help Bobby train because Hank's like, "Oh, I got to do some work for Mr. Strickland." And so Dale's like, "Oh, don't worry, Bobby. I'll trade you. Now jump over the bar." And it's like a pull up bar. So clearly it's not like, I think even a healthy person probably wouldn't be able to jump over it, much less Bobby. But then Hank's like, "Actually, Dale, I need you to help me out." And so Bobby's like, "Great, I can't get started. Like, I'm not a self motivator." And Joseph's like, "Well, I'm not doing anything. I can help." In the computer room, Dale is teaching Hank how to play games. Like, "Oh, just put your brain in your hand. I call it brain hand." And Dale plays the game a little bit to show Hank, and he throws a propane tank at a car, and Hank's like, "If you threw a propane at a car, neither would explode." Then we see Bill wants to play next, and he's like, "Okay, I'm gonna go find Peggy," and then he dies like within a few seconds, and he's like, "But I barely got to be Hank." And then now it's Hank's turn, and he sees like in the difficulty settings, there's like an employee, an assistant manager, and a manager mode. And he's like, "Huh, manager mode." And so he gets in there, and then he's driving around North Arlen. He's like, "Man, North Arlen has a lot of check cashing places in this game." And they see a woman who's like walking her baby get robbed, and they're like, "Hey, Hank, go after them." And Hank's like, "All right." And then he's like, "Man, this bobtail feels pretty nice." And he parks the car and runs after the guy. It's like, "Don't chase him, shoot him." He's like, "That's not how I play." And he beats him up and returns the purse. And Hank's like, "Huh, the game doesn't have to be about mayhem." and he is just constantly playing. Like he's hooked on it now, and he plays till he's gets like the senior manager promotion, and it's like the middle of the night, and he's like, okay, I'm gonna go to bed, but then like it pulls him back in. Now he's at Strickland, and he's at work, and he's playing the game, and a customer comes in. It's like, yeah, I have some questions about propane. And he's like, oh, well, propane's good for all your grilling needs. And the customer's, feels like he's being ignored. So he's just like, oh, gosh, he leaves. And then Buck comes in and says, you don't have to play the game anymore. My lawyer says because this is in the public domain, there's no money that we can make off of it. So stop playing, get back to work. And, well, Hank is not having much luck. So, yeah, I think this is like, I don't know, Hank getting super. It's just funny to be watching Hank. Like, this is just something you would not expect Hank to, one, be good at, but then two, also enjoy.
Yeah, I don't see Hank playing video games, but I do think he like the fantasy of being the senior manager is too enticing for him. And I feel like isn't there money to be there's no money to be made here. I feel like
Probably not. If the
we could
game's
see a
public
growth
domain
in that.
and they're not actually making money off of it, then there's no way to sue them. I'm guessing. Now, I'm by no means am I a patent or trademark or IP attorney, so do not take anything I say as canon. But I don't think that there's an old saying: you can't get blood from a turnip. Like if they're not making money off of this game, it's not likely that there's going to be any benefit in suing them. Like they're not going to make. You're
I'm
going to spend a lot of money on nothing.
I'm surprised Buck isn't like, how do we make money from this game? Like, how do
Yeah,
we turn this into our favor?
that would have been interesting, but I'm pretty sure Buck doesn't care. Like, if nobody's putting money out. One of the things that upsets me, like, I am not a game designer by any stretch of the imagination. So, I have made like little video games when I was a kid, young, but I I would not be able to make a AAA title if my life depended on it. The most unbelievable thing about this episode is not that the game exists. The fact that they made it in under like presumably 24 hours. That is like total BS to me. Like, there's no way they would have completely built that up. Like, even if they were, I mean, and this is what, back 2007, 2006, something like that when this episode came out. And like Unity and a lot of these frameworks didn't even exist back then. So it's just funny to, like, I know it's nitpicky, but that's just always makes me laugh with that, like, that fact of the game or of the episode.
Okay, I'm gonna throw out a theory. What if they already had the game and they just threw the propane skin on it?
That's
And the hang like
possible.
they had like a Grand Theft Auto esque game and they were like, now we love propane so much. Let's do that.
In general, that would possibly work, but like even if they reskinned it, it would take them more than 24 hours to skin it. Maybe.
Mm, I hmm, I don't know. Maybe there's like I don't know. This show is unbelievable, and now you're poking holes in it. This is just
Hmm.
a flawed show, I guess.
Nah, but
Maybe Bobby can save this up.
what really upsets me though is the fact that somebody hasn't actually tried, like, because it's on computer now, Grand Theft Auto, that somebody hasn't actually tried to create a King of the Hill skin. Like, even if it was just for one episode or whatever, or one level, that would be great. Like, I remember when I was a kid, I forget what game we were playing. Maybe it was Counter Strike. This is like early 2000s, 2002, 2003, playing video games at my friend's house. When we used to do LAN parties. Younger folk probably will not know what it is, but everybody would actually bring their computer, their desktop to somebody's house and play computer games all around a table and whatnot. And yeah, we did LAN parties and we were playing. I want to say it was Counter Strike, but we had like a custom skin that turned it into Matrix. So like all the game was now all Matrix and Matrix characters, and you go to the phone booths and all that stuff. It's like, can't somebody do that with King of the Hill?
Huh. I'm surprised. I feel like there is no like King of the Hill video game or King of the like the Simpsons have all these things, and I feel like King of the Hill didn't like it knew its market, it knew its niche, and it was like, we're just gonna stay here.
There is, I don't think it's on Android, but on iPhone, there is, or in the Apple Store, there is like a Fox fighting game where you could fight as different Fox characters, and Hank is one of the characters you could fight as. So there's something.
Well, that's just cashing in on the popularity of a nostalgic program like King of the Hill.
True.
And I'm downloading it right now.
Perfect. You're gonna have to tell me how it is because I do not have iOS. So yeah, so we're back at the story. Bobby is training. He's trying to do a pull up, and he finally is able to pull himself up a little bit. Uh, Joseph actually brings a piece of paper to like measure that he's actually off the ground, and he's like, "Wow, Bobby, you're off the ground. I was able to put a piece of paper under your shoes." He's like, "Regular?" It's like, "No, construction paper." And Bobby's all happy, and while all this is happening, Hank buys like a new controller because I guess now he's really into the gaming. Joseph just keeps pushing Bobby harder and harder, and he was actually able to do a push up. And he was so happy. He ran inside and he was like, Dad, I did a push up. Mom, I did a push up. And Hank's like just not paying attention because he's just in the zone on the game. And then Peggy's like, I think your father would love to see you do a push up. And so Bobby does a push up. Hank's not even looking. And then Bobby's like, oh, I'm going to do lunges now. So Bobby's like all excited, and Hank's just not paying attention, but I don't think Bobby's catching on. But Peggy definitely is. And Peggy unplugs the computer, and Hank's like, oh no, if I plug it in right away, maybe it'll get me back to where I left off. And Peggy's like, oh, you've got an addiction. Trust me, a woman who reads Parade magazine knows all about addictions. Do you even know what's happening to your son and the lawn? And Hank's like, nothing's wrong with the lawn, which is funny because he just takes precedent over the lawn, or takes preference to the lawn. He's like, there's a brown spot, and there's a brown spot in your son. Huh? What do you mean? And then we see Bobby doing lunges. I'm feeling the burn, Dad. I'm feeling the burn. He's like, oh man, Hank's just realizing the error of his ways, and he's been neglecting Bobby. And so he says he'll quit. And then Peggy's like, prove it. Throw away the controller in the trash. And Hank won't do it. And then I guess they're like their version of Ask Abby. I don't know. Maybe Ask Marilyn's a real thing. But he's like, Ask Marilyn says people who own fancy electronics are known as technosexuals. To where Hank's is like, oh, throw it away. Which I don't think is true at all. So now Hank is training Bobby again. And Bobby is just barely working out. And Hank's like, okay, good. Stop. Good job. A for effort. Okay, it's break time. Now, Bobby, get your Game Boy. And then Bobby's like, what? And then you hear the door open, so Peggy's coming in, and he's like, oh, yeah, I was just testing you. And you passed. So as a reward, get your Game Boy. And Bobby's just like, oh, Dad, you kidder. At Strickland, Hank's trying to work, but the propane game is on the computer, like the loading screen or the start screen. And he's just like, he really wants to play, and he can't focus on his work, and he's trying to find a way to play, but everybody's walking around, so he just can't. At the alley, Dale's like, hey, Hank, it's good to have you back. I've learned how to drink beer through osmosis. And he proceeds to rub the can of beer on his body, like on his face and on his neck and stuff. And Hank's like, yeah, no, I guess the game got really old, and, they could have developed more, so it's fine to be back out. And Bill's like, Bill talks about how he has found a way to play online, and Hank's like, oh, I didn't realize there was an online gameplay. Excuse me as I go inside to clean a smudge off my glasses. And then Dale's just like, man, I'm getting buzzed. Uh, he goes to the garbage can, he grabs the controller, Ladybird's there, and he's just like, don't judge me. Uh, Peggy finds him gaming, not happy, and he's like, okay, how about this? I'll only play once a day after dinner. And she's like, no. It's like, I was married to a man, Hank, not a gamer. Peggy heads out to school because she wants to find the creators of the game, and finds out that the whole virtual PE class is being canceled because a bunch of parents figured out that kids were playing video games at school. They formed an action group. So Peggy is like, okay, well, where can I find the creators? It's like, I don't know. I rule out any place with girls. they go to this place, this I guess comic book video game store, and they're talking about horror movies and stuff. And Peggy shows up and she's like, "Hey, my husband's addicted to your game and want to figure out what I can do." She's like, "Oh, don't worry, he's going to get bored with it. There's only like 6 people who play it anymore anyway." And it's like, well, that's just not what Hank's going to do. He loves it, and it's like, well, there's only 2 ways people ever quit playing a video game. They either get bored or they get humiliated. There's also the 2% who stop because of seizures. And Peggy's like, well, Hank's definitely not going to get bored, so let's humiliate him. We see Hank playing the game, and he's clearly like the best player. He's murdering all the other people and whatnot. And all of a sudden, he sees a new character that he can't beat. Like he punches them; they just take no damage. They're essentially a damage sponge, and they blow up Hank. And Peggy reveals that it is her. Like, she's the new character, and she is in commissioner mode. And it's a mode that the game developers create. And once the person in commissioner mode blows themselves up, the entire game deletes. And Hank's like, "Oh, just let me play commissioner mode for 1 hour." And Peggy kills the character, which destroys the game. And Hank's like, "Thanks, Peggy. Man, it feels good to blink." Presidential fitness test day. Bobby does just 1 pull-up. He needs to do 3 total, so 2 more, and then he will pass the fitness test, but he can't do any more. So he gets a blank magnet. He's a little depressed because he's like, "Oh, I failed." And Hank's like, "You should still be proud. Turn around," and you see a bunch of these other kids who weren't even able to do 1 pull-up. And so he's like, "You did better than some of those other kids. And, we'll go ahead and start training now for next year." And then Bobby's like, should I shave my entire body to get more aerodynamic? And Hank's like, "No." Episode ends. It is kind of a funny swap, if you will, because Hank is the athletic one. We see that constantly in all the episodes and whatnot. And then Bobby's like the nerdy video game player. And then we just kind of see that swap in this episode where Hank is the person who's obsessed with the video games, and Bobby's the one who's like trying to get fit and train and everything.
Well, I mean, I guess I do appreciate it. Bobby never gave up, even though Hank kind of left him to his own free will. Bobby was like, "I'm going to stick to this." So I appreciate that in Bobby in this episode.
Yep. Yeah, Bobby is a good kid, and he stuck to it. And it was funny. It was nice because once he got excited, like once he realized he was able to do this, he was just like, "Oh wow, I could do this. I could actually do this." And so now he's like really energized to keep trying.
I do think he needs to shave his whole body, though.
Yeah, I don't think so.
He needs to be more aerodynamic. He's pushing against the gravity of the world when he's doing his pull-ups.
Yeah, I mean I feel like, granted, I'm not a athlete. I don't know the science behind it, but I feel like the whole shave hair off of your body to be more aerodynamic. I don't know. I feel like I don't know. I guess maybe where milliseconds count, maybe it's a difference, but still, it's like I don't really see it
I
making that big
just
of a
rub
difference.
myself in butter. I rub myself in butter. That way the air just breezes off me.
Oh,
A
that's a
layer
good
of butter
idea.
on me. I could cut through the air.
That's perfect. Or put Crisco on you.
Yes. And then I cover myself in breadcrumbs because the bird's chasing me is a better motivator.
That's true. That's a good motivator right there. Keep away from the birds trying to eat you. I do
Yes.
like how the gamers were able to create. Now, granted, this part I actually believe that they were able to create a commissioner mode and give them the ability to delete the whole server. It does beg the question: where is this game hosted? Like, who's paying for the hosting for the online version? But I know I'm thinking way too hard about all this stuff. But yeah, it was a pretty fun to watch. I really wish I could play the game. Maybe that's why it doesn't exist because Peggy destroyed it. But it's just funny that that's what actually happened. Like, that's what got him out of it was the game just no longer existing. And I don't know. I guess It's funny. I feel like Hank would have tried to find another game, maybe that wasn't maybe exactly like the propane game, but was still like close enough because at some point he was it was no longer about propane. Like he's beating up pimps, he's shooting people with flamethrowers and stuff. Like now it's just your regular like sandbox rampage type game with like Grand Theft Auto or Saints Row or whatever. And so it's like, man, you just get a similar game. Maybe he just doesn't understand gaming that much. Like that's like maybe he thinks that's the only game that exists.
I bet aren't there like I know there's a tractor simulator game where you ride a tractor. I bet there's one where you like have to maintain a lawn.
Oh, I guarantee there is. There's also a power washer game on Steam right now. I guarantee if Hank had like a Steam Deck or whatnot, he would absolutely be playing that game.
There is lawn mowing simulator. That's Hank's game.
If there's not a Hank Hill level or a Hank Hill mod, I would be super upset. Like, come on, that's a perfect opportunity.
It looks like there's 3 DLCs for this game.
I don't know. I mean, I don't know. I just really wish. I really hope somebody takes one of these games and does like a Hank Hill DLC or something like that. You know, they make. I don't know. Maybe they wouldn't make that much money, but I'd imagine they'd make a decent amount of money off of that.
They do need to make like I wonder if it's open. I play this video game called Ark Survival Evolved, and they have like someone's modded it so you can catch Pokemon in it. So you can go to their server and there's Pokemon on their server instead of dinosaurs. They should do that. There should be like a just a free public server of someone doing lawnmower simulator with Hank, and it's just the Rainy Street neighborhood.
I'm supportive of that.
Do we kickstart that? Do we have to kickstart that?
No, it's too much effort. We could see if anybody would do it. I feel like that. I feel like then we'd get like a cease and desist or something from Fox or whatever. That or they would require us to what's the word I'm looking for? They would require us to like pay gosh, a lot of money just to get licensing rights to make the game. So
Well, I don't know. Would you want to make money off of it, or would you just be happy knowing that we made it into the world? Like, what if we just sold the idea off and they were like, "Well, people are interested. We'll make this," but we get no like money at all. But we helped create it. Is that enough for
I
you? I
guess,
feel
but
like
like if we kickstart it, they would still want some money. I would guess.
this
I'm
is
just
true.
yeah.
Or we just change it. Just would you be okay changing the characters just enough to not for it to be a parody, and that we could be under that law?
Be like Hunk Hall or something like that.
Yeah. Maybe we need to hire Weird Al, outsource it. Like,
I feel like that would be like I need to look up like parody laws now because I'm not sure exactly how it works, but I know like parody law it gives you don't have to get permission to use the works to profit, but I think it's also like I feel like there's definitely a I don't know. Like I don't know how similar or dissimilar it has to be before they're like, oh no, this is way too much infringement on our patent, and we need to throw it away. Like I know Nintendo, for example, talking about video games, the company of Nintendo is like notorious for sending, and I think Disney as well, for that matter, is notorious for sending like cease and desist letters and stuff of anybody who makes like a parody video or whatever, or makes parody content or not so much parody content, but clone games. There you go. If you make a Mario clone or something, they are notorious for like sending out messages saying stop or this is your only warning, stop, and then or else we will pursue legal action kind of thing.
isn't that what happened to Flappy Bird?
I think
Do you
so.
remember Flappy Bird, that phone game?
Yeah, because I think like there was people who were upset, or Nintendo was upset because the pipes look too much like the pipes in the actual Nintendo.
Yeah, I'm thinking that because you can't download that game anymore. Because I remember people were selling their phones with it downloaded, and they were like hundreds of dollars for this phone. Why don't I ever have that stuff on me? I guess I should just download every game.
Yeah, and
But
I know like there's a
I think
lot
that's
of.
what.
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just reminiscing of Flappy Bird. That was a fun game.
I think also like that's a big reason. I might be wrong. Might be Nintendo won't sponsor Super Smash Brothers tournaments either. And I mean, I guess that there's nothing they can do to stop you from doing it, but like they will not sanction any of them. Is my understanding. Like, there's nothing they can't stop me and like 8 of my buddies or whatever from playing super like a tournament with each other. But I think they won't allow it like at conferences and at certain places and whatnot.
Well, actually, yeah, maybe you're right. Because I remember when we went to Comic Con together, there was Nintendo was there, and they brought Super Smash, but they didn't have a tournament.
Yeah, like they really protect their IP, and so they're very protective of who gets to do what. Like, obviously, if you're just a regular gamer, then you can play the game to your delight, but they get really upset if you like basically if you try to profit off of it. Like, if you try to profit off of
Huh.
their games or whatever, they get upset. And I might be getting
That's
this wrong.
interesting.
Like, we might get an angry email of somebody pointing out that I got this all wrong. But that's my understanding is that, like, and Disney's the same way, too. Like, back in the day, Disney used to be known for, like, suing daycare centers for having Winnie the Pooh wallpaper or whatever. Uh, they couldn't do that anymore because now Winnie the Pooh is in public domain. I have not read much into it. Like, I have no idea why Disney let that happen, why they let the copyright lapse. But yeah, Winnie the Pooh is now in public domain.
Wait, is it because they haven't made something in so long that it goes into public domain? Is that how it works, or
No,
do they have to
uh,
reissue a copyright?
no. So I don't know the exact law how the law works, but essentially, when you copyright something, it's the copyright does essentially have an expiration date, and I don't like you are able to renew it, but I think there are like certain conditions you have to meet or something. Um, Winnie the Pooh public domain or the Winnie the Pooh copyright ran out, and I guess they just didn't renew it for whatever
Huh.
reason.
Interesting.
I don't
Maybe we
know.
should make our
Yeah,
own Winnie the Pooh book.
we should. Yeah. So I mean, I don't know all the details behind it, but I know like now there's, and we're getting way off King of the Hill now, but I know there's like now a Winnie the Pooh horror movie coming out because it's
Yes.
public domain.
It looks very bad. Like the costuming just looks bad, but I'm definitely gonna watch it. I don't think it's a. It feels like it's a direct to DVD release, but if it's in theaters, I'll go see it.
There's no way it has money to make it in theaters. It might be like a Netflix drop or something, or a Prime Video drop or something like that.
What is it called? I guess it's the last thing for
Oh, there we go.
because
Okay,
I'm.
so this is it's only partially in public domain. So Disney did not create Winnie the Pooh. A. Milne did. In the A. Milne's books, like Winnie the Pooh, the character is in public domain. That being said, like the character modifications, Disney still owns. So like Winnie the Pooh wearing the red shirt is something Disney still owns. But you could make your own Winnie the Pooh book and give him like a purple shirt, or not in the original book, he doesn't wear a shirt at all, and you'll be fine.
Hmm. The movie's called Winnie the Pooh: Blood and Honey. I cannot find a release date though. I might just be really bad.
Well, maybe there isn't one yet.
Oh, he's wearing like a lumberjack outfit. I wonder if that's how they get away from.
Oh, maybe. But yeah, that's all I've got. Weird segue. That's all I have on King of the Hill. What about you?
Yeah, that's all I have too. I've been distracted. Yes, a great episode. Probably gonna watch it again. Um, Someone make that video game and then just give it to us secretly,
I'm
and we'll play it
absolutely
in
going to
our free
watch it
time.
again. And yeah, we will catch you next time when we talk about Won't You Pee My Neighbor, which is an earlier season episode. And it's really Bobby and to some extent Connie focused. And another example of Hank not being happy. Until then, I'm Jason.
And I'm Jimmy. Bye.